Today we will be looking at Winter Light, a Swedish-language drama film released in 1963 by Ingmar Bergman, starring Gunnar Björnstrand, Ingrid Thulin, and Max von Sydow. It is a film in which Pastor Thomas, the main character, struggles to find meaning and purpose in a world seemingly bereft of God, all while rueing the death of his wife. When a churchgoer comes in panicked with fear about the coming of atomic bombs, Thomas has no comfort to give and instead rejects God, later even rejecting his girlfriend who has only ever loved him, Marta, after the death of that same churchgoer. This film's plot is deeply believable and effective. The audience learns details about the characters and the past as it goes on. Yeah, and the plot also uses devices to bring us through and create tension. For example, Marta gives Thomas a letter long before he reads it, and so throughout the scenes in between, we're excited for him to read it, or at least a little bit scared, and so that brings us forward. Yeah, that really got me invested. So something I loved, the film's acting is superb and authentic, and the reason is that the actors that were chosen not for their looks, but for their ability to be raw in these roles. They spend most of their time looking stiffly and talking with these sort of repressed emotions, and when we see them leak through, something magical happens.
Det blev en fruktansvärd chock. Jag hade ju fått ett orubbligt bevis på att vi inte älskade varann. Det gick inte längre att smita och fuska och blunda.
When Marcia reads her letter, her acting is deeply emotional. Ingrid Thulin is serious and speaks directly to us. She doesn't blink for an entire 2 minutes, and for the entire performance, she stares right at us 6 whole minutes. This helps develop the constant emotional pressure that Bergman creates with the rest of the devices in the film. I thought it a little cheesy. No, it was not. Wait, so this film is symbolically and ideologically heretical, being a deeply personal story which bucks conformity, or at least the restrictive Hollywood environment. This is not a format film. Both Bergman's and Thomas's fathers are priests, and the elements of the director's life are used throughout. Yeah, I heard Bergman turned down a $500,000 contract from MGM because he wanted to create a film that was less popular but more meaningful and personal. Wow, what an example. In the letter scene, Marta addresses the audience directly, breaking the fourth wall and the continuity of the piece and putting us in a different place and time than the rest of the narrative. The classical Hollywood style doesn't really affect the film, as it chooses to buck trends. Bergman's choices against the style are what give the film its staying power and value in a world oversaturated with the same kinds of content. There's so much out there. This film uses the mise-en-scène elements of long takes and uncomplex shots to emphasize the feeling of the silence of God. There is no ragged cut up a chase scene, no pan across a crucifix. This is about silence, blandness, suffering for nothing. The film is one of rigorous simplicity, says Rodger Ebert. Third person much? That's not to say that the film doesn't use mise-en-scène for impact. One example is the way that the camera dollies in to emphasize Thomas being rejected by God and rejecting God during his conversation with the suicidal churchgoer. Yeah, it's so pretentious. It's pretentious, but it's so good. The main theme of this piece is that the opposite of love is not hate, but apathy. This is defined when Algot, the sexton, says that the real suffering of Jesus was not in the injuries inflicted upon him, but in the silence of God. So, what did you think overall? Well, I would highly recommend this film. I mean, it captures the bland, terrible suffering that we live with every day that is so hard to express, but it's also moving, beautifully shot, sorrowful, and just a little bit hopeful.